Straight.
Hello, everybody. Tommy John here, rubbing elbows with Tommy John. Today's guest is one of my very, very good friends and a great competitor and a great left-handed pitcher, Jim Kaat. Rubbing Elbows is brought to you by Herkimer Diamond Mines, owned and operated by the beautiful Renee Shavat. I told her I'd say that, so that's, Kitty, it's good to have you on, seriously.
Well, it's good to be with you, TJ. And, when I got the call this winter about being inducted into the Hall of Fame, I felt, well, that's a good sign for Tommy, because I really felt you should go in ahead of me. But our careers were so similar that I think this bodes well for you getting in the next election. And if I have anything to do with it, I will certainly push for that to happen. Yeah, no question. I had the right guys on the committee. I had guys I played with and against. I had, Ozzie and Mike Schmidt, and Fergie was supportive, Joe Torre. So you need to have guys on that committee that, saw you pitch and know what kind of pitcher you were and for a long period of time. And that's going to happen. I'm confident of that.
My dad told me when I signed to play baseball, and I was leaving Terre Haute, Indiana, and they were putting me on the plane. He told me, he said, Tom, remember one thing, no matter what you do, whether it's good or bad, you will forever be Tommy John from Terre Haute, Indiana. And, if I get in, Tommy John from Terre Haute, Indiana, Hall of Famer. If I don't get in, Tommy John, Terre Haute, Indiana, who still can't play golf.
Well, that's a good way to look at it.
You signed out of high school?
No, I went to 1 year of college. I went to Hope College for 1 year. Actually, I was kind of a little kid, athletically speaking, and so I didn't get a lot of looks like Tiger tryout camps and things like that. They wanted their pitchers to be 6 feet. I graduated at 5'10". I was like 5'8", but like you and I had to learn to pitch by, as Johnny Saint used to say, if you don't have the power to get hitters out, you give hitters opportunities to get themselves out. And I had to learn that. Yeah. And I had to learn that at a very young age. So that helped me even in my teenage years. As Johnny used to say, we're all in the business of fooling people. So you tried to fool them and trick them. And that helps when you learn that at an early age.
Well, that's the one thing I had guys with the White Sox. I had one of the best pitching coaches I was ever around, a guy named Ray Berries.
Oh, yeah.
The other two guys that really helped me were Gary Peters and Joe Harlan. And Joel just passed away a couple months ago. But I watched them, asked them questions. And I learned how to pitch by watching my teammates or watching you or watching Robin Roberts or watching guys who were successful. And, and that nowadays, I don't know what they do nowadays to determine if you can pitch.
Yeah, I don't think that seems to be the last prerequisite is can he pitch. Now, when the Twins drafted their number one kid last year out of high school, I was with all the scouts and they were raving about, how he could throw near 100 miles an hour. And they were talking about his makeup and everything like that. And I said, well, the one thing I haven't heard you say, can he get hitters out? Well, that's the last thing that comes out. I said, where's he going to pitch? Well, he's going to go to Florida and he'll pitch about 15 innings this year. Well, compare that to, and he will be at my induction, Jack McKeon. At 19, I pitched for Jack in Missoula, Montana, and all he did was throw me the ball and said, kid, you're going to get the ball every 4 days. You might pitch a little relief in between because we only have 7 pitchers. So I pitched almost 240 innings at age 19, and I'm sure you did in the minors, and that's what helped us learn how to pitch.
You learn how to pitch by pitching.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you don't learn it like when you run sprints, I soon came, and you and I used to spend a lot of time on the stationary bike. And of course, our friend Art Fowler's famous line was, oh, Jesse Owens never won any games, or Carl Lewis, if you put it in modern terms. The sprinters, you don't run it over. So Johnny Sain was a big believer in, tinkering with the ball, throwing the ball every day, learn how to spin it, learn how to make it move. And that's how you learn how to pitch.
Exactly. Words of the wise. Yes, you just, I learned pitches. Well, I only had 2 pitches when I signed. I had a fastball and a curveball. And that was 1961. When I retired in 1989, I was learning my 3rd pitch, the changeup. And I couldn't throw Johnny's little sliders,
controlled breaking ball. Yeah, I still have the spinner here that with the wooden handle shows you how to spin it.
I could do that. I could never do that. And one, I could control the break by arm angle, by arm, and throwing it. It would be a little harder, be flatter, but it would break. And then if I wanted to get you out, it would be up on top, breaking downward. But, you live and learn.
Well, you mentioned their changeup. That is, when I go back to Minnesota, I talked to the fans there about, I said, if there's one pitch that I wish that I had during my playing career, because I said, I was like you, I had fastball, curveball. I learned Johnny's little control breaking ball, but the Twins had Johan Santana and they had Frankie Viola, and they had excellent changeups. I said, if there's one pitch I wish I had, I wouldn't care if I threw 100 miles an hour, but I wish I had a good changeup. Because can you imagine during our careers the number of times that if we had that pitch, we would have thrown it in a certain situation? But they never really encouraged us to learn that pitch. That was, it was fastball, curveball, and that was about it. The slider for a long time was taught the wrong way. So a lot of pitchers, like the young Baltimore pitchers, all hurt their elbow. So you kind of shied away from the slider. So as you mentioned, you just learn to kind of change speeds on the curveball, and you felt like you had 2 or 3 different pitches by doing that.
I lost a job broadcasting for the Yankees by telling somebody on the air. It was Bobby Mercer and me. Bobby was doing play-by-play. I was doing color. And they said, Tommy, you're going to have a 3rd person in the booth. I went, oh, who? Susan Waldman.
Yeah.
And I went, wow. Okay. So we're going along and, going back and forth. And she said, well, his slider would be much better if he got on top of it and pulled down to get that downward break. And I looked at her, and the words that came out of my mouth cost me a job. I said, Susan, what year did you win 20 games?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's what Mel Stottlemyre said. And I said, oh, Mel Stottlemyre said if he would get on top and pull down. And she said, yes. I said, okay, I'll buy that.
Yeah.
And that's when I found out that Steinbrenner and Susan were very, very good friends, and I was not invited back.
Well, to your point, I think a lot of the coaches today, and they're very helpful from a mechanical standpoint, but I'd always said, they can sit up there in the press box and tell the pitching coach and the manager, well, this is what our information says. You need to throw this guy a slider here. Well, if they've never been on the mound during a pressure situation and they don't know how your breaking ball feels today, they don't know how you've done in the past against this hitter, that may not be the right pitch. So the analytics and all that information can be good if you keep it up in the office to evaluate players, but nobody that has not been on the mound like you and I have in pressure situations, they don't know how it feels. So they can't really tell me what to do in that situation. Well, you're not alone. I mean, I talked to my good friend Bill White, who was my broadcast mentor when I did Yankee games.
Yeah.
I talked to a lot of my former, I'll see a lot of them. We're going to have our 40-year reunion of our 1982 World Series team, the Cardinal team. And most of them say really don't watch the game anymore. And even with my grandsons who are in their 20s, there's really not enough in the game today to make it exciting for the young fans. See, I was so privileged. My last full year was with the 82 Cardinals, and we won the World Series. We hit 67 home runs as a team. We stole 200 bases. We had the best infield defense. We could play defense. We could pitch. Whitey Herzog said, "Get me 10 singles tonight, guys." And then Willie McGee will turn a single into a triple. And that was such exciting baseball. And we don't have that anymore. It's kind of become home run derby. And I don't know. I'm trying to get a feel for, do the young fans really like that, just to go to the game and see, well, let's see how many home runs we could see. Whereas us old codgers, we liked the hit and run, the sacrifice bunt, the inside game of baseball where you didn't have to listen to loudspeakers blaring out, hip hop music. You just wanted to hear the ball hit the bat and watch the game. And I don't know if there's a lot of us still watching or if it's the younger generation, but certainly guys of the vintage of you and I, even games that I announced, the game is not as appealing as it was 50 years ago.
No, it's not. No. Did you have a walk-up music when you hit?
No, I'll tell you where walk-up music started, by accident. And you probably know, you got traded for this guy. But when Dick Allen was having that big year in '72 for the White Sox.
Yeah.
You just never knew when he was going to get hold of one in his wheelhouse.
Here's the 1-2 pitch. Long drive, left field, home run. Way up on the roof. Brother. It's a one-man wrecking crew tonight. Some kind of a high breaking pitch. Allen waited for it and hit it right off of the top of the roof in dead left field. And he's getting quite a reception again in the dugout.
He was on a tear. He literally single-handedly almost led them to the division title. So Nancy Faust, the organist for the White Sox, played Jesus Christ Superstar. And Dick hits one in the upper deck. So from that day on, every time he came up, they played that song. No, I didn't have any. I get a kick sometimes when they play walk-up music and I see a guy late on a fastball. I always say his walk-up music should be "Don't Get Around Much Anymore."
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. But, you're right. It's what was your first game? When you signed and you went to the big leagues, who did you pitch against for your first time?
Well, my debut was against the White Sox in 1959. And actually, I had come up from Chattanooga. I struck out 19. Next game, I struck out the first 4. And then I did something to my shoulder. We didn't know what. We didn't have MRIs. Right. But I said to Red Marion, our manager, I said, my shoulder doesn't feel right. He said, well, take 10 days off. So I come back and my arm angle has dropped quite a bit. So now he calls me in and said, "Kid, you're going to the big leagues." I said, "Wonderful, but do they know I'm not the same pitcher that I was 3 weeks ago?" Well, they didn't track that stuff. He said, "You tell them about it up there." So I go up and I start game 2 against Aparicio, Fox, and the guys that won the pennant that year. And I lasted about 2 innings, and the pitching coach said, "Well, what happened to you? What's going on?" And then shortly after that, they found a little like a fatty tumor down between my ribs that they operated on. But see, that would never happen today because they track every time you take a breath, for crying out loud. But that was my debut, which was not very good. And then after the little minor surgery, I was on the shelf for about 5 weeks. And then I actually got to pitch to Ted Williams near the end of that and didn't do too well the first time. I did get him out in 60, but the first guy I faced was Louis Aparicio in 59.
one of the White Sox wives came up to the manager when I was pitch, and she said, I want my husband off the infield. We're trying to have a family, and I don't want him to get hit. Hard off Tommy.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had a few infielders say that to me.
What was your most exhilarating experience? World Series?
My top thrill in baseball was when Bruce Sutter threw strike 3 past Gorman Thomas in Game 7 of the 1982 World Series. And that enabled
Sutter from the belt to the plate. A swing and a miss, and that's the winner! That's the winner! A World Series winner for the Cardinals! Porter throws his mask into the air. The players converge around the mound. The police arrive on the scene. The canine patrol and the mounted patrol. Some fans manage to get on the field, but they needn't do that, and they won't be out there very long. The Cardinals have won the game 6-3. The Cardinals have won the National League pennant, and the Cardinals have won the 1982 World Series. The final score 6-3.
And that enabled me to wear a World Series ring. I went to the series in '65 with the Twins, and I ran into our good friend Sandy Koufax 3 times, and we lost in 7. And then 17 years later, I get back. I did not realize that that was the longest period of time any player ever had to wait between World Series appearances. Well, then when we won Game 7, I later found out from the Elias people that no professional player in any professional sport has had to play 24 years before getting a championship ring. So that's not a record of accomplishment. That's just a record that I'm grateful for, that I got back to the World Series in my last full year, and I finally get a World Series ring.
When you pitched in the World Series, did you try to do anything differently, or did you just pitch Jim Kaat style?
Well, you know, at that time, TJ, I was a lefty-lefty reliever. I still wanted to start, but Whitey came to me and he said, I want you to be my lefty-lefty guy. Like in Kansas City, he had a lefty named Steve Mingori. And and he said, I'm going to build my staff from the 9th inning back. We're going to get Bruce Sutter. I want to build my bullpen first and then my starters. And so I said, good, I'll do that. So my job really was to just come in and face left-hand hitters. So when I went to spring training that year, all I did was drop down sidearm. I tried to learn, to control my fastball moving across the outside corner, and then the other fastball I tried to kind of buzz up and in with a little movement and then a sidearm curve. That was basically my style, no matter who I came in to pitch against, because it was probably going to be 95% left-hand hitters. And the World Series, like I faced Cecil Cooper, Jimmy Ganner, Ben Ogilvie, guys like that. Those were the guys I'd just come into. One time I got to face my good friend and teammate Teddy Simmons, and he had a flyout or something. But that was rare for me to face a righty in the World Series.
Whitey Herzog was a little early before his time, wasn't he, with his thought process?
Yeah, I think so. He was, Chuck Tanner meant so much to me as a manager, because when I thought my career was over, I was 4-6 in 1974. And I thought he was calling me in to release me. And he called me in. He said, Chuck, he's the most positive guy in the world. And he slapped me on the back and said, you've been averaging 15 wins a year in this league for 15 years. I think you can still do it. He said, you're starting a week from Monday against Cleveland. Go down with Johnny Sane, figure something out. And I ended up 21-13. So I say Chuck Tanner was important to me because he kind of resurrected my career. But Whitey Herzog that you referred to, Whitey was kind of a genius in the dugout. He always seemed to be ahead of the other team. He always seemed to bring us relievers in situations where we were facing a hitter like you were not in. Like he wouldn't bring me in today's game and say, here's Mike Trout, pitch against him. No, he's going to want a right-hander against that. So he was really good at matching up his bullpen. And to me, from a manager's standpoint, that was the most important thing. Now with all the science, they kind of do that, but what all the analytics tell them.
Yeah.
I enjoyed all the years. I used to go to my friends' Hall of Fame inductions, and I would sit on that Otis saga between Warren Spahn and Robin Roberts. And of course, Spahny kind of taught me, just a quick aside to today's pitchers, they get limited to 100 pitches, 80 innings, but if they never get their legs strong enough by pitching deeper, they'll never be able to go deeper in the game. So Spahny, he always took that little hop step and throw the ball into second base. That's how he strengthened his legs. So I learned that from him. Robin, we start to talk pitching. He said, they used to ask me, how do you pitch Willie Mays? And my answer was, tell me the inning, the score, and the count. Well, see, they don't pitch like that anymore. In other words, what he was saying, if he's got a 6-0 lead in the 8th inning and Willie Mays is hitting, here it is, Willie. See how far you can hit it.
Hit it ballpark. It's going to be right. 6.
But if it's 1-1 in the 7th with a man on second, I'm not probably going to pitch you that way. But what happens today, and that's why they don't let pitchers go the third time through the batting order, is you see their plan, their so-called game plan is they just seem to pitch every hitter the same way when they come up. They don't vary their pattern. I think the last guy that I saw that really did that successfully was Greg Maddux. But now there's there are power guys, and here it is. I'm going to pitch you this way for 2 at-bats, and my job is done with. But that stuck with me, what Robbie said. So when I would face Mickey Mantle, for example, I'd put that into play. Okay, what's the score, what's the inning, and what's the count? And that's going to determine how I pitch him.
Robin Roberts, we had a Philly farm club in Terre Haute, Indiana, and I was a Philly fan, along being a Cub fan. And Robbie was my favorite pitcher ever. And who do I beat in my first big league win is I beat Robbie in Baltimore. He was pitching for Baltimore. Robbie and I start the game. We both go complete games. I threw 72 pitches in 9 innings, and it was 1 hour and 34 minutes.
Right. Yeah.
But I just got the ball and I threw sinker, got the ball sinker, got the ball sinker. Next guy, boom, sinker, curveball. And it's just, but I beat Robbie, and every time I saw him, he said, you're the guy that beat me in Baltimore, aren't you? Okay. You helped get me out of the game. But you had a lot of coaches. And I know you were big with Johnny Sain. Who else helped you as a pitching coach, and what did they tell you?
I think the 2 coaches that really helped me the most were Eddie Lopat and Johnny Sain. Now, I had Marv Grissom for a year, and the one thing Marv did for me is he taught me a screwball. He was a right-hander that threw a screwball, which was unusual. But so that was a pitch I used, and unfortunately I slid into second base in 72. That was the last year before the DH, and I broke a bone in my wrist, and I never really got the feel of that screwball back. But early in my career, what Eddie Lopat did was he said, kid, you got fastball and curveball. You want your curveball to work for you. And what he meant by that was, say if I face Mickey Mantle and they would say, well, Mickey's a fastball hitter. Okay, but if I throw curveball 1, curveball 2, now he's a better fastball hitter on 2-0. Right. So I learned to gamble early in the count, try to get ahead. And then if I threw a curve and missed, I was still in a favorable count where maybe I could come back with it again. So I didn't want to waste my curveball early in the count and fall behind hitters where you were forced to throw them a fastball. So Eddie taught me, that was one of the things that Eddie taught me. But the interesting thing with both Eddie and Johnny is they both won 20 games in the big leagues. Neither one would have blacked your eye with their best fastball from 60 feet, but they knew how to pitch. Right. And so that's what was helpful to me, is to learn how to give hitters opportunities to get themselves out. And they were two guys that really epitomized that.
That was my two Ray Berries. And when I was with the Dodgers, we had a disciple of Berry's, Red Adams.
Yeah, I heard about both of them. I knew so much. I got to meet Ray, and I've heard so many good things about Red Adams.
Yeah, Red was, when I had my elbow surgery and I came back, I said, Red Dog, one thing I want to ask you. Make sure I do the same thing. I throw the same way. My arm angle's the same. Everything is the same now as it was before I hurt my arm. He pulled out his notebook. He said, what does this say? Make sure TJ throws the same. And I said, okay, we're on, because a lot of times you have an injury like that, you come back and you'll change your arm angle and it'll make the pitches look different.
Right.
And I wanted to be the same. And the only thing I did differently is I stepped more across my body than I did early on. And I did it, I guess, out of right here thinking that I would go there and it would be easier on my elbow. But, in fact, I had, who was it, with the Braves, said, you step across your body quite a bit, don't you? And I said, yeah. Do you do that to hide the ball, to throw out of your jersey? And I said, I throw out of my jersey? Oh, yeah, you throw out of your jersey. I didn't know that. So then I went, okay. I stepped across my body and threw, and the ball would come out of your white or gray. Yeah. And anything to get a leg up on the hitter.
Yeah, I remember when we were teammates with the Yankees and then playing against you with the Dodgers. Yeah, because if I were to pitch against you, wherever I planted my foot, your plant foot might be 6 inches to the left there. But
how's your golf game?
Well, you know what I tell all my friends that now will say, well, how'd you play today? I said, you never ask a man over 80 how he played. You just ask him, did he play? And so I get enjoyment, the recreation. Like today, I'll be with some buddies that came down from Florida. I don't see them very often, and we could care less how we played. We just have a good time.
That's you're talking about the Pierce. I think it's been 2 or 3 years now that my friend Larry Haggerty and I have not played in the Pierce. It got to be too technical for me, you got to do that. I just want to play golf. And now when I get my leg strength back and I can walk without a walker or a cane, all I want to do is be able to play golf 9 holes with my wife. And that's all I care about.
Right. Good way to look at it.
Yeah, baby.
TJ, I've enjoyed it. Always enjoyed talking with you, and I'm happy to do it again anytime.
Thanks, Kitty. Appreciate it.
All of our Herkimer diamonds, whether they're in their natural form or calibrated form or jewelry or clusters or in the host rock, we're the source. So we sell a lot of product to a variety of people throughout the world.
Straight.